Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Plot podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by the amazing debut author, Hannah Evans. She released her first debut novel back in 2024, The Mapmaker's Wife, which actually incorporates some of her family history. So it sits within the historical romance genre. She has a fantastic story where she shares when her writing journey first started as a child, all the way through to obtaining an agent and how she became published. I also want to give you a big thank you to tuning into the podcast this year. I'm very excited to bring you some more guests already lined up for 2026. So enjoy this festive season. Make sure to listen to all the other podcast episodes that I have released in 2025. Enjoy, everyone. Have a great rest of the year, and I'll see you in 2026. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So thank you for being on the podcast. Very excited to have you here today.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So before we get into your story, which I know everyone will be extremely excited to hear kind of how you became published and a little bit more about your debut novel that was released in 2024. Do you want to give yourself a brief introduction to everybody?
Sure. So I'm Hannah Evans. I'm an author based in South Wales. And yeah, I've been writing for a few years now and really interested in stories mostly centering around women in history and modern day experiences.
Fantastic, fantastic. So let's take it all the way back, because I always like to go from the start and find out kind of where your story started and how it evolved. So what did that look like for you in terms of your writing career? Were you a child like a lot of other authors? Did you start writing in your teens or early adulthood? What did it look like for you?
Yeah, I think like a lot of authors started as a child filling notebooks, always getting those old school books and notebooks asking for Christmas and birthday and things to always be scribbling down stories. And my first, although The Mapmaker's Wife is my first published novel, my first full-length novel, I think I would argue, was called Tiny Dude and was written for my brother when I was, I think, 10 and he was 7. And it turned all of our best friends into superheroes and was incredibly derivative of all the superhero books on the market. So yeah, started writing from a really young age. And then just always kept it up as a hobby and a bit of a creative outlet, really, through kind of less so in my teenage years, I think, but as a child and then as I got a bit older, kind of took it up a little bit more seriously, I suppose.
Yeah. So what did that, and I hear this a lot, right? Yeah. A lot of authors will write when they're younger and they'll have that kind of gap in between, and then they'll take it more seriously. Maybe they'll do a degree in English literature or something like that, or they'll get into, potentially publishing or something. But again, everyone's story is very different. So when did you pick it up again?
I picked it up again when I was at uni. I did English and I went to Durham where my grandparents lived, and we used to meet for breakfast every week in Greg's. And they would tell me these really fascinating stories about their lives together, when they met in the Caribbean, when they travelled around kind of what was then British Empire countries, the experiences that they had. And it was so fascinating. And so I would kind of scribble it down on my phone and be on the phone to my mum, my sister, my cousins, whatever, kind of saying, did you know this had happened? Did you know they were shooting beach balls off the edge of a cliff and living in the kind of outback in the jungle and living in the desert and all this just really cool stuff that I didn't really know they'd been doing. And then the stories got deeper and it became more about kind of family dynamics and decisions that were made and experiences that they lived through as an interracial couple. And so then the kind of stories I was recounting would get more complex. And I thought someone just needs to write this down. I've always found family history really fascinating and genealogy and all that kind of thing. And so I kind of started writing it down. And as a very avid reader, I was studying literature. I was meant to be writing my dissertation at the time and just found this way more interesting. And as an aside, I was meant to be writing my dissertation, which was focusing mostly on rewriting women's stories in Caribbean literature. And my dissertation supervisor said, you won't get 12,000 words out of that. There's not really much out there to say about
Yeah.
Caribbean women's literature. So I like to think I've proved him wrong, because I'd love to be like, well, how's 110,000 words, buddy? Anyway, and so I started writing down the stories from my grandparents and just found the process really interesting. It was, again, a lovely creative outlet after doing really kind of academic analytical writing. And it was around then that I kind of wanted to understand more of the process, because I thought, well, I could just turn this into a PDF and send it to my kind of family and friends if they just wanted to read the true story of what happened. But I was getting more involved, more interested in the process, kind of enjoying the writing, the act of writing it out, and saw it kind of shaping as a novel, and just thought, well, why, in the arrogance of my 21-year-old brain, I think I was like, well, why shouldn't this book be published? I think this is really interesting. Like, this is a story I've not read before. And then set about looking into how, because and especially, back, that's nearly 10 years ago now, there wasn't much out there on how to get published. There weren't a huge amount of
Yes.
like access schemes or anything like that, which I'm seeing much more of now, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was a case of Googling like how to get a book published and trying to read someone's blog, or so. It was a little bit smoke and mirrors. So yeah, then I wanted to explore how you go down that road.
Yeah. Did you ever think about going like independent published, or did you always have in your mind that you wanted to be traditionally published?
I did think about independent published, actually, because I'd interned by then in like a Welsh publishing house, Parthian Books, which is a really brilliant independent publisher in Wales. And I'd thought about that, but my only understanding then of independent publishers was the Welsh scene, and I knew that this book didn't really have a huge tie to Wales other than a Welsh author. Now I know, and I advise on the Books Council, so I work quite closely with Welsh publishers, and I know that they probably would have been interested, because they are, if anyone listening is interested, if you have a tie to Wales, the story doesn't have to be Welsh. I didn't know that at the time, so I thought, oh, well, I obviously can't go down the independent route, because none of them will want this
Yeah.
story about all these different kind of places across the world that doesn't really mention Wales. Didn't think to Google, are there English independent publishing houses? Don't know why that didn't occur to me. But I think by then, when I'd been kind of looking into it, a lot of the advice that I found was, oh, you can't get published without an agent, and you need an
Yes.
agent to kind of get through the door. So I think, and again, that again is something that I think is changing. You've got like digital first publishers who will take unsolicited manuscripts and things, and there are fantastic, obviously, independent publishers that I just didn't know about. And so yeah, I think at the time, because that looked to me like the only way to get this book into the industry, that's more why I went down the traditional publisher route.
Yeah. So agent first, and what did that look like for you? Did you you obviously had to go through submission, right? So did you get one on the first try, or did it take multiple rejections before you had an offer?
So I queried for about 4 months, and I
Yeah.
think I had 6 rejections in that time, some of which were very, very useful, I will say, because I think one of them gave me quite detailed feedback as to why they were rejecting me, which was great because it was all true. So it was like, this pacing is terrible, this character's not very well developed. All of those things were absolutely right. And I then addressed with the agent who took me on. And I was I think it must have been, fantastic timing. She replied to me within a week of receiving it and just said, send me the full thing. And then I think within another week, she was like, when can I meet you? I really want this story. And essentially what she said was that she loved my pitch, which makes sense because I work a lot in communications. So I do a lot of pitching stories to journalists. And she said, oh, your pitch was really fantastic. The book wasn't quite as good as the pitch. So I want the book you pitched me. So let's rewrite it together. So that's what we did.
Okay. Fantastic. So your pitch got you the in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the
Brilliant.
book.
Yeah.
Well,
but then the book, and I think that's what a lot, with traditional published, the messaging that we keep hearing is your book doesn't have to be perfect, right? It just needs to have a starting point. And a lot of time, your agent will see something in you in that book and say, look, it's not quite there yet, but we can work on it together, like your agent did. And again, when you submit that to a publisher, your editor is still going to have a few edits that you've got to make as well, right? A few rounds. So um, I think as long as you're open to that and you understand that there are going to be edits and potentially some criticism that you need to be open to and trust those individuals because they are the experts, then you're going to put yourself into a really strong position. If you kind of go in there closed off saying, no, this work is brilliant and I don't want anyone to touch it, then you're going to have some hard truths
Yes.
coming your way, and maybe be a little bit more difficult to work with. So once you got that agent, they worked with you on the book. How long did it typically take before they felt it was ready to then start submitting to publishers?
We worked on it kind of on and off for 2 years. So I signed my agent in 2020 and
Mhm.
then we got the publishing deal in 2022. But within that, at one point, I think there was a 6-month gap in between kind of sending the manuscript to my
Yeah.
agent, getting around to looking at it and sending feedback. And there was definitely at least 3 full, I think there might even have been 4 full redrafts from scratch within that process, adding a point of view, taking one away, changing the
Yeah.
tense, adding different scenes. And then my agent sold it on a partial preempt. I can't remember what the term is. She sold the idea to a publisher, and then it was Orion Books who bought it, and they had it on an exclusive and said yes, they wanted it, but they wanted the ending to change. So,
Okay.
without spoilers, there's a big decision that B, the main character, has to make. And they asked if we could flip the decision.
Ah,
So
okay.
originally I'd written the true story of what happened
Yes.
when she found out she was having a baby that she didn't feel she could cope with. 1950s, very isolated, experienced a lot of racism where she was living, which was in a kind of British government compound surrounded by other kind of government official
Mhm.
wives who weren't very welcoming to her. She had already 4 children under 6, I believe.
Wow.
And I know, can you imagine? Anyway, and and had this decision to make when she found out she was expecting again. And I originally wrote the true decision that she made, and they said, what if she actually made the other choice that was presented to
Mhm.
her? So they bought it then on a, I think that must mean they bought it on a partial, in that I technically hadn't finished it, because I then had to do
Yeah.
another complete, throw out the draft, start again,
Yeah.
rewrite once I'd signed the deal.
Gosh.
I know.
That's a lengthy process, right? Like a lot of people might think, oh gosh, it's taken so long. Like, how did you handle that with the momentum and, again, to then go to, because you had a lot of like rework with your agent and then the publisher wanted you to change the ending. Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, not well. It took me a long time, I think, because I worked full time as well. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of early starts. I mean, very lucky. Thank God for lockdown in some ways, because it meant that working from home became
Hmm.
more of a thing. So I could work from sort of 7 till 9, and then literally
Yeah.
to swap laptops at 9 and start work. Um, but yeah, I found it quite stressful.
Yeah.
But I really loved what I was doing. And I think I do wonder about future books, because I was so personally invested in this story, as in it's the
Yeah.
story of my family. I think that was also really driving me forward, that
Yes.
I ultimately wanted to see women like my grandmother represented in print,
Yeah.
and my grandfather in there, that, I've done things like all of their real children's names somewhere in the book, although I've changed
Same.
the names of the actual characters. Their names are in there. All the places are true. But I think because I was so invested in it, there was no scenario in which I wouldn't finish the book, because I really
Yes.
wanted it. I just wanted it so much. And by then I was kind of bought into the idea of how it still blows my mind that something I wrote is in a bookshop. And I think I just really wanted to achieve that. And so
Yeah.
I set the alarm for 6 a.m. Well, and again, I think the way I dealt with it was largely down to my now husband, because I basically said to him, I'm really sorry, but I'm checking out of domestic life for the next while I'm on this deadline. I'm really sorry. I can't make tea. I can't do the bins. it was, and bless him, he was just like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So I think the truth of a lot of authors is that the reason you can do it is that someone is either supporting you financially or
Yeah.
domestically, or
Yeah.
often a bit of both. And so very, very fortunate that, I had dinner's ready, darling, called up the stairs and I'd be like frantically writing after work. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Because, like, do you still work full time now?
yes.
Yeah, which I'm the same. I work full time as well. Um, but you got to have a passion for it, right? You've got to love it, and you've got to be driven to do something because, yeah, there's only certain times in the day that you can do it, right? And it becomes very chaotic, and you have to kind of not do certain things, like I said, domestically, but also like, you got to think, oh, you've got a deadline, especially when I mean, not for me, but you had people that were relying on you to give them something by a certain time frame. Did you struggle at all, like mentally, as in, okay, I've got 2 hour window now to write something? Because that's quite a lot of pressure to give yourself. I mean, I've been in that situation before, and then I've just been like, my brain just goes off on a tangent. And I mean, did you feel that you could sit down and write continuously for those 2 hours that you gave yourself, or was it difficult
Um,
at times?
It was difficult. I think it's always difficult in the same sense that if you're training for a marathon and you're
Mm,
like that, because that's actually what I would normally liken it to when friends say, God, I don't know how you found the time. And I say to them, you've done 4 triathlons in the last year.
yeah.
Like, you're a full-time doctor, or whoever it is. I'm like, how
Yes.
did you
Yeah.
find the time? And I think, as you say, it's exactly true that if you want to do something, you will try and squeeze it into the hours that you
Mm,
have. So whether that is training for a marathon, you've just got to get your shoes on, you've got to get the miles in. I will
yeah.
never do that. That sounds
Yeah.
horrendous. Good luck to people doing all of that. And my version was sitting down and, yeah, right, I've got 2 hours, I've got to do this. And the reality was that I didn't achieve it every time I
Yeah.
tried because it is really hard and there are distractions. And as much
Mm,
as you want to let go of any domestic task, suddenly you do look around and go, God, I've just got to run the Hoover around or whatever it is.
yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a challenge, but I try and do words rather than time. So I generally will try and say, right, I've got to do 2,000 words today.
Yeah.
So, and that is the goal and that's the kind of deadline. And I think it helps working in comms and PR and advertising and things. I'm always working to deadlines at
Mhm.
work, and I quite like it. I quite like
Yeah.
having a right. And also I'm kind of the opinion in both sides that you can only do so much, and so whatever I achieve by that deadline has to be good enough. Like you can't just keep polishing and polishing and polishing. So I try and yeah, will say to myself, right, 2,000 words today. Ideally, do them in these 2 hours. Otherwise, you are back at this desk after dinner, or
Yeah.
you're getting up really early the next day, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So that works better for me because yeah, sometimes I can get it all done in an hour and a half, or sometimes I
Yeah.
need 4 hours. So yeah, I tend to do words over time.
Brilliant. So what what's kind of, I mean, you mentioned earlier that kept you going because it was the inspiration was your grandparents, which it must have been so lovely for them to have, their story in a book and to be published and to then show them that as well. What else is inspiring you to continue writing? Like, where do you feel that your inspiration is going to come from next, or is currently?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one for me. My family are very excited about the book. My grandmother was as excited as she gets, which is generally just very good to hear. So that was lovely. And now I think it's I'm inspired to keep writing stories that feel very true to me and reflect
Mhm.
the experiences that I find really yeah, really kind of interesting and poignant for what I or family or friends kind of going through or experiencing. I also do really, really love writing about history and periods of
Mhm.
history that maybe have been a bit overlooked.
Yeah.
So I know, I'm really liking how much focus is being put on colonial history and history of the empire and the atrocities that happened. I think that's really important. So I'm glad that the Mapmaker's Wife has a part of that and the kind
Yeah.
of the female perspective on it. And sadly, kind of industry is turning away from historical fiction a little bit at the moment. So
Yeah.
I'd actually written a full second novel, which was another dual timeline kind of love story,
Yeah.
but this time set in West Wales. Because I have my husband's family have connection to the Italian prisoners of war who
Oh.
came to Wales and then ended up settling afterwards. But I think that story is a bit on the back burner for now. So I'm
Yeah.
turning more to kind of stories of kind of friendship and like friendship rom-com kind of style
Yeah.
for my
Yeah.
next piece, which is very much, yeah, inspired by kind of my friends,
Yeah.
who I've known for years or who I'm just getting to know. So I think people and place really inspire me, similar
Yeah.
to most writers, I think. I'd
Yeah.
love to be able to write, I really love like time jump novels, but
Yes.
I don't know if I would, because again, like history and kind of the concept of why we choose the things that we do and how that has
Mm.
kind of butterfly effect impact, I find really
Yeah.
interesting. Don't know if I'd be capable of writing it, but yes. So I think for me, it's always about the people and the stories that they reveal. And then the kind of, particularly the Mapmaker's Wife landscape was really inspiring. And yeah, so I think it's that combination of people and place.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like stepping into a slightly different genre with rom-coms and friendship. Are there any authors that are kind of inspiring you right now?
Yes. I mean, I've always loved, so Jojo Moyes is probably my
Yeah,
favorite
I love
author. And
her. Yeah.
I'd love, I love that she is able to do that. And she does sometimes go down the historical route, but then she will do more kind of modern contemporary stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
I also really love a lot of the new voices that are coming through.
Good.
So I've been lucky enough to meet some other kind of debut
Yeah.
novelists, and I've really loved a lot of their books. Like Celia Silvani, I had the fantastic opportunity to read her next, well, a draft of
Yes.
her next book. Let's see whether it is this version that comes out. But oh my
Yeah.
goodness, it's fantastic. And Holly Grazio, who wrote The Husbands, I really loved that. That was a really
Yeah.
fantastic novel. And then, Claire Chambers is always a
Yeah.
wonderful read, excellent writer. And Dorothy Koonson, obsessed. Marion Keyes, love her. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
I really love the the women who've been on the scene for quite some time, but also, yeah, the new voices coming through.
I know, it's so nice because there's so many. I mean, yeah, grown up for years reading some of these names, right? And they're very well established, but very down to earth, very humble. I mean, I think they've had to adapt over the years with the ever evolving publishing journey as well, and social media and
Mm,
AI now. Like it's very different. I've had some authors on here who have been published for 15, 20 years, and they've shared with me the story that how it used to be versus now, and it's very
mm,
competitive. um but yeah, I think it's so nice to see a lot of debut authors coming through as well. And I mean, I think there's a world where there could be as many authors and books, and there's always going to be people to read them. And especially if you have a love for reading, I think let's hear people's stories and
yeah,
yeah, get the more the merrier, really. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's great that you can pivot as well. Like you were historical, and I think that's still embedded in you, but you've got a passion still, right? And you still want to get your words out there. So changing that slightly. Have you have you found any challenges with that from switching from historical to kind of rom-com friendship?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge I think for modern writing is, well, one, that it is relevant without feeling too kind of cliched.
Yeah.
I was writing a scene earlier and mentioned Spotify Wrapped, and I was like, God, is that really, like, I don't know, is it just a bit weird? And also, tension is so much easier in historical fiction because there are a lot of barriers in the way of communication. So you couldn't
Yes.
just ring someone and be like, did you mean to send me that? You go, oh my goodness, I've received this and they must think this. And now there's this big drama between us. Or there were a lot of social barriers that meant that people couldn't, be in, or, obviously they could have done, but it was perceived that they shouldn't be in a relationship with someone if they were
Yeah.
very different. Or there were all these other ways of adding tension and conflict and drama, which is very central
Yeah.
to a lot of novels. So I find that is a really interesting challenge to kind of find
Yeah.
other moments to bring that into the story. And also I think it's quite close to the bone. I'm
Yeah.
writing at the moment, about, and I don't know if this novel will go anywhere, but writing about that kind of moment in life when friends do start to get married or have children or kind of move apart from
Hmm.
when friendships have maybe sustained them for so long as their kind of key relationship, what happens when that dynamic changes. And so it's also quite challenging that I think, oh God, that is quite, I've experienced that from either side. And
Yes.
I quite liked having, when I kind of fictionalized the first novel, I liked having a bit of distance. So when my editor
Yeah.
did say, right, change the ending, you need to fictionalize it, I thought, oh, okay, that's good because I'm not trying to represent this like really horrific choice that actually was made and
Yes.
impacted people I love.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's making sure that it feels authentic
Hmm.
um, and relevant without almost without getting too personal.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
probably a big challenge for contemporary kind of modern writing, I would say.
Yeah. So does your with your agent then, do they give you kind of a timeline, or are they kind of open to you saying, "Hey, this is when, my next novel will be probably ready for me to send to you to see to get your thoughts." What does that look like in terms of working with them still?
Yeah, it was so for this next idea, we just had a chat about it really, and I said I think I can do it in sort of 3 or 4 months, and she was like, "Are you sure? Do you want a longer lead time?" I said, "No, I want the again, like I need the deadline. I need the reason to sit down at the laptop and do it." Um and due to publishing schedules that I still don't fully understand, it worked that timeline that I gave her was quite
Yeah.
suitable to when she might then want to review it and start
Hmm.
pitching it. But I'm assuming she would have told me if she needed it sooner or but
Yes.
they know I work full time. So yeah,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
very understanding.
Are you writing at the moment just when you can, or again, are you being quite like fixed with your time, as in like, okay, I'm going to write before work, maybe write after work, weekends, or is it a bit more flexible?
It's a bit more flexible at the moment. I'm just because my work has been quite busy, so I'm trying to do kind of afternoons, the occasional weekend and things.
Hmm.
But I know that I will, as my deadline gets closer,
Yeah.
I will start to do right. The 6 a.m. alarm is back. So that I can get it finished.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think having some kind of structure still in place is good, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
otherwise we could procrastinate for a very long time. And
Yes.
then
Mhm.
I think is again, if you've told your agent that you're going to have some piece of work for them within a deadline, it still holds you a bit accountable. But
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. So if you could look back and give your younger self a piece of advice, as in maybe when you're first starting out and thinking about doing this, professionally, is there anything that you would tell your younger self?
Oh, it's a lovely question. Um, I think I was really lucky in that my agent really did listen to my kind of opinions and thoughts, which I know isn't always the case. Um, so I guess I would say like definitely stick, hold your ground on the things that you really want to keep in. Know
Mm.
what hills you're going to die on, but you can't. You will have to compromise. Um, and I'm glad that I did make some of the compromises that I did in the story.
Yeah.
Um, I think just keeping keeping the faith that you will finish and that you are capable of doing it, because I think I would have the occasional spiral and just think, oh my god, what am I doing, like this
Mm.
is all a mistake, proper imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But then it it did take a bit of reminding, well, they've chosen this book for a reason. Editors would be wasting their time on this if it wasn't worth pursuing and worthwhile, and all of this. So I think I would maybe just tell myself to be a bit kinder to myself, and
Yeah.
not to panic quite so much.
Yeah. Trust the process, right?
Yes, exactly.
Any advice that you would give to like emerging or aspiring authors that maybe, because you mentioned earlier that it was quite hard at that time 10 years ago to understand the publishing process, right? And I think even now, like you said, you can Google it, you can find ways. I mean, I'm trying to spread that knowledge now by, not only supporting, authors promote themselves more and get their name out there and get more people reading their books. But from the other side, we do have an audience where they're starting out and they are looking to get published and they don't know what to do or where to go. And I'm trying to normalize that for them as well. But is there a piece of advice that you would give someone out there who is writing a novel right now and wondering what to do or where to go? Is there anything that you'd share with them?
Yeah, I think, again, definitely stick with it. If you believe this story kind of needs to be told,
Mhm.
and that there's a space for it in the, it's a shame that we have to think commercially, but if there's kind of a space for it in the market, then why can't you be the
Mm,
next voice to come out? I remember, I mean, the advice that my mum always used to give me about anything like this, she would just say, well, someone has to do it. Like, so in this example, someone has to be a debut next year. So why
yeah.
can't it be? What is the evidence that says it can't be you?
Mhm.
And most of the time you think, oh yeah, I guess it can be me. Um, so I would say, back yourself.
Yeah.
It's also, you don't get sucked into, you don't have to pay for expensive courses. You don't have to pay for, freelance editors, and things can be really, really useful. But at that early stage, if you don't want to spend money on that process, you do not have to spend a penny.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe, lean on some, join any communities that you can. So I post a lot about the publishing process and the editing process on TikTok. There are loads of bookstagrammers. I assume there's like Facebook groups, and there's probably local, community writing groups
Mhm.
that you can join. So I would say generally try and just become a member of that community, learn from others, speak to others. When you feel ready, definitely recommend sharing early drafts with any friends, family, colleagues, book club
Yeah.
members, to get feedback on a draft, because ideally, if they also are your target audiences and the kind of people who would read the novel you're writing, then their feedback will be really valuable.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, just keep going even when it's hard. Try and find the time. And yeah, I think having that community around you, even if it's a virtual one, and even if it's just
Yeah.
other aspiring authors on as I say, on TikTok and Instagram, um, it's that's a really excellent resource to tap
Yeah.
into, and a way to just find inspiration when you think, God, I can't write anymore. Have a little look, maybe chat to
Yeah.
some people. I met some writers years ago. I think that was on Twitter, and now I'm waiting for one of them to send me her proof in the post so that I can post
Oh.
about how wonderful it is, because it will be wonderful. And that was just through, I think, a DM. Oh, are you writing as well? What are you working on? And just kind of chatting away. It's a bit cringe, not gonna lie, but it works and it helps. Um, yeah, so that would be my advice.
Do you have, are you part of any associations or anything locally in Wales that is like your community?
Do you know? Not in Wales, actually. I'm a member of the Books Council panel, but that's more about advising publishers on how to kind of, I use my kind of PR marketing knowledge to help them shape their marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
But I'm in a couple of kind of WhatsApp and writing groups now from other people who've had their 2025, 24, and 25 hardback paperbacks
Yeah.
published, which Orion, it was really fantastic. They did us this like debut academy. So everyone who got
Oh.
published in 2024 and 2025 was put in a group. We were given sessions on how your cover gets designed, what international rights are, all this stuff. But the thing I found most valuable in that was that we then formed our little WhatsApp group. And again, since then, we've done manuscript swaps. We
Yeah.
message each other. Oh my God, my agent's just sent me this. What do I do? Um, or we share wins. Yay, you've had great sales, or whatever it is. So that, it's more that. So that for me is more UK wide. But I know that there are like local
Yeah.
writing groups that I
Yeah.
think, if I were fundamentally a more organized person, I would fit into my month. But I still haven't managed. I don't know why. I still haven't managed to get to an in-person writing session.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm fortunate to have that virtual community.
There's more and more writers' retreats popping up now, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's companies that, yeah, are doing it. I mean, I don't know when this started. I'm sure it's been around for a number of years, but I think they're becoming more prominent now, where you can escape on a writer's retreat and meet other authors, published, non-published, and escape and have
Yeah,
some inspiration and connect. And yeah, and that's a great way to build your network as well, right? And I think
definitely.
we're so lucky actually that we do live in a digital era where you can slide into someone's DMs on Instagram or TikTok and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I've noticed you've released a novel, or can you share something about that?" And the community is amazing. I've found, even with creating this podcast,
Mm.
it like just all the authors out there are so friendly. And I think so many people have imposter syndrome soon.
Yeah.
It's like still, and it's like, how do you have that? You've got X amount of novels that you've like had published, and so they're very grounded, very down to earth, and have a lot of wisdom, but they're happy to share that as well. So I feel like, yeah, like you did, you met some people through that group, you met
Yeah.
people through your publisher. I think any way that you can find it, do it. And I really love that piece of advice that you just shared there about it doesn't have to cost you money.
Mm.
I mean, if you're going down the independent route, yes, because you're going to have to put the money up front to navigate that, because you have to release it yourself, right? But traditionally, you shouldn't have to put any money up. And yeah, so it can be a cost free. You just got to have your time
Yeah.
invested in it, which is another thing. Um, so you mentioned earlier, I mean, I'm interested how you market yourself, because what did that look like for you when you released your debut novel? And how are you still kind of doing it now?
Great question. I am not very good at marketing myself. It's something I do need to improve on. I think also one thing I assumed, so there were, sort of ads on Instagram and Facebook and digital ads and things. And my publisher did do some lovely PR and got me in a couple of like national newspapers and magazines and things. But I think I just assumed that the kind of PR and marketing machine would be I guess bigger than it was,
Mm.
which I think is quite common. A lot of my debut friends kind of say like, because obviously to us it's like the biggest news in the world. To our publisher, we are just one in
Yeah.
30 books, whatever that they're marketing. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
As someone who works in marketing with clients, it is sometimes hard to find the time for everyone.
Yeah.
But I love going to book clubs. Really love going to book clubs and
Yeah.
talking to them about the process. I think a lot of people, I include myself in this, love when a book is based on a true story. All you want to
Mhm.
do is grab the author and be like, was this scene true? Was this scene true?
Yes. Yeah.
Who's this character based on? What did they say when you told them? So I love going to book clubs and spilling all of those secrets.
Yeah.
So that's been a really fun way of kind of marketing myself, I suppose, and getting the book out there.
Yeah.
And but also just connecting with readers, because I obviously love the story so much and the characters. So it's
Hmm.
really nice to be able to talk about them. Because my granddad has passed away now. So the fact that he's in this book and that people
That's
are
lovely.
reading a character inspired by him, and I get to talk about his little quirks and all of that kind of thing, is just
Yeah.
really wonderful. And then yeah, other than that, I suppose I try my best to post on social media when I
Yeah.
can, and yeah, connect with independent bookshops as much as I
Mhm.
can, and for any events that they've got coming up. But yeah, I mainly use, so I'm on TikTok, but that's not, I'm terrible at actually mentioning my own book, because but I just want to be the resource that I wanted. So when I was
Mhm.
starting out and I was like, what is going on? What's that? So I try and answer people's questions. I'll share, here is my pitch letter. This is what got me
Yes.
my agent.
Yeah.
This is how my cover got designed.
Yeah.
Here are the reasons I was happy to get rejected by these agents.
Yeah.
This is what you can search on Google to find publishers. I want to talk a bit more about. I'm really interested in the concept of digital first publishing, because I know
Yeah.
some people will hate me for this, but I almost exclusively read on Kindle. So I'm really intrigued by that. So when I learn more about that, I'll share that on my TikTok.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that way, I mean, every now and then I'll be like the mapmaker's wife, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm really, yeah, I think book clubs are probably the best way, but I also am kind of hopeful that word of mouth, and if you like historical fiction,
Mhm.
then this will be a fantastic book. But I also don't want to shove it down people's throats if they're just not really that into historical
Yes.
fiction, because,
Yeah.
that's fine. They don't have to be, and they don't have to buy the book.
Did you have any input in the cover? Just show us your. Oh no, just show us your book cover. Did you have any input, or did they? Just say,
I
this is what we're going with.
so you get sent the brief, or this is how it worked for me. I got sent the brief that was going to the designers so that I
Mhm.
could see um, anything glaring that I didn't like. Originally, I did say I don't want the back of a woman's head because all historical fiction has the back of a woman's head.
Yeah.
But I relented. I made them change the hair 3 times because it wasn't quite the correct curl that I
Oh,
wanted.
okay.
And also, this is an actual island. I realise this isn't a useful thing to say for the audio side of the podcast, but there is an island on the front cover, which is an actual photo that I sent to them of Sugarloaf,
Oh,
which you can see from Grenada. So I thought I wanted that to be on there. It only took, I think, three. They sent me kind of three concepts. We narrowed it down to the one we went with. And then I asked, originally it was a relatively generic, just harbour scene. And I was like, well, I don't think that's actually Grenada. And that's where the
yes.
book is set in the Caribbean. So I wanted something that if you know Grenada, you go, oh my God, that's Sugarloaf. And if you don't, you'd say, oh, what a beautiful island.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, that's how we got to it. But I really like it. It's very vibrant.
Yes,
It's really eye catching.
it is.
And yeah, I was really happy with the final version.
I love it. And I love that you got input as well, right? That they do still want the author to be happy with the
Yes.
final cover. And it is very eye catching. And it is one of those ones that, I don't know about you, but I go into a bookstore and I'll be, oh, that looks nice. That looks put into the colours. And yeah, it's definitely, you want it to be eye catching when it's amongst many other books as well.
Yes, absolutely.
um, did it get a digital version?
Yes, it had hardback, um, paperback, which came out in 2025, and then it had Kindle version, which came out with the hardback, and it had an audiobook as well, which came out at the same
Oh,
time as the hardback. And I got to
nice.
choose they sent me the shortlist of actors to
Yeah.
read. And again, I wanted it to definitely represent the characters, so I asked that they only sent us actors who had Caribbean heritage, which
Yeah.
they did. So yeah, and she was fantastic. Jane Ajia is the name of the actor, so I got to kind of choose her, which was really fun.
Lovely. That's so special as well.
Yeah,
And what an amazing memory, like for you and your family, especially with your granddad not being here anymore. It's lovely that people can still hear his story and
yeah,
your grandmother's story as well, which is must hold, yeah, must be very special, especially with it being a debut. It will always hold a special place in your heart as well.
yeah, I think so.
So what's next for you then? You're obviously working on a novel at the moment. What do you want to be doing? Like, where do you see yourself like in the next? I know not everyone has a plan, but I always think like someone, you've got to have some kind of plan. Where do you see yourself in the next kind of 5 years?
Ooh, oh, I mean, in 5 years, I hope that another book of mine will have been published, but it's such a slow process um, that I would at least um, like a steady deal in the next 5 years
Yeah,
if I haven't already. But I'm hoping that I will have a second novel published within the next 5 years. Yeah, is my aim.
you 100% will. Yes.
I hope so.
You've got, I feel like you've got enough kind of stories going in your head that you're working on some. Yeah. And I know the process probably took a little bit longer with your first one, but
Yeah.
you've got a bit of an in now, right? You've got your agent, you've already had a book published. That's gotta, it's gotta take you somewhere.
I hope so. Yeah, we will see. I think it's because I really wanted to do historical, but the historical market's kind of taken a downturn. So that's the only thing that I think I didn't anticipate
Mhm.
was that obviously a lot of it is totally beyond your control. And you can write a really
Mhm.
great book, but if there just isn't deemed a market for it, then you might have to shelve it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd love to know what the next 5 years holds, but I'm hoping it holds, yeah, another novel coming out.
Yeah, because yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because you might send your manuscript out and they may have seen something similar the week before,
Yeah.
or like you said, maybe historical right now doesn't, it's fading a little bit, but it will come back round again.
Yes,
And
this is what my agent keeps telling
yeah,
me. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
100%. So where can people find you, Hannah? Where, I mean, you mentioned TikTok, you mentioned Instagram,
Yes.
website?
Yes, I do have a website. It's not very good. I am Hannah Evans Books. I think I'm Hannah Evans underscore books to be precise on TikTok and Instagram. And yeah, on Instagram, I like to post about the books that I'm reading that I'm really enjoying, and book recommendations. And then TikTok, I need to start doing that more. But at the moment, I'm just answering a lot of questions about how you get published,
Yeah.
and what the process looks like, and writing
Mhm.
advice and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Perfect. I'll follow you on TikTok. I
Okay.
joined TikTok when I launched this podcast. I'm still navigating it. Um, and I don't know whether it's doing anything, but hey,
I'm sure it is. I
I'm
think
sure it's doing something.
you've got to cringe at your own TikToks, otherwise you're not doing it properly. This is
I
what I'm
know,
telling
I
myself.
know. I haven't come to like the dancing or anything yet.
No,
Typically
same.
I just post what I post on Instagram, I don't think it hits as well as Instagram. So I need to probably invest a bit more time as in what's working. Like, where are those million views coming
Yeah.
from that I would love to
Yeah,
get?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, Fantastic. And what about your books? Where can they buy your books?
So you can buy The Mapmaker's Wife on Waterstones, Amazon. Any independent retailer should be able to order it. Bookshop.org is my favourite, because then you get to give money to independent bookshops.
Yeah.
And yeah, any of those kind of high street or online brands will carry it.
Fantastic. Amazing. Well, we wish you all the best. We're going to be following your story, waiting for that next novel
Thank
to come
you.
out. No pressure. But yeah, for those of you who haven't read Hannah's debut novel yet, go and check out those sites. And it's on Kindle still, correct?
Yes, sorry, yeah, it's always on Kindle.
Yeah. Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll chat to you very soon.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Take
You're
care.
welcome. Bye.